Representative Harriet Hageman's push to block the controversial BLM Rock Springs plan passes the U.S. House. Text messages show that former Superintendent of Public Instruction Brian Schroeder made his staff uncomfortable using public funds for a private event. And did a photographer capture photos of ghosts at Fort Laramie? We'll take a look at these stories and more today from Wyoming's largest news organization. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily. An effort led by Wyoming Republican U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman to block the Bureau of Land Management's controversial Rock Springs Resource Management Plan gained traction Thursday when the U.S. House passed her amendment to that effect. The bill prohibits the finalization of the draft plan. The BLM manages about 3.6 million acres out of the agency's Rock Springs field office, much of it in Sweetwater County. The BLM's preferred alternative for the draft RMP designates 1.8 million acres of that as areas of critical environmental concern. In a statement, Hageman called the RMP, quote, one of the largest land grabs we've ever seen. Well, even former Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction Brian Schroeder's own staff was concerned about how he was planning a Stop the Sexualization of Our Children political event in 2022. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson reports that emails and texts show that Wyoming's former chief education official made his staff feel uncomfortable about using public money and resources to host a personal political event.
Even Schroeder's subordinates and people working for him in the Department of Education were criticizing his role in planning this event that originally used state funds to plan for it. And one staff member, who's the chief communications officer for the department, described it as icky.
Although the event was eventually moved to a private location, it was still paid for with public money until it was fully reimbursed by private donors more than 6 months later. No one was hurt Wednesday morning when a bus driver hauling 17 kids in Gillette had a medical event and crashed through a fence. Campbell County Undersheriff Quentin Reynolds said the driver, a 49-year-old man, had a medical emergency, lost consciousness, hit a berm, went into a drainage ditch, knocked down 30 yards of barbed wire fence, and high-centered the bus on a hillside. In talking with investigators later, the driver reportedly remembered making the last bus stop on his line to pick up a child, and then his memory fell away. After the crash, the driver was more concerned about the students than himself, but all 17 students were checked for injuries and cleared. I'll be back with more news right after this.
No one should go hungry on Thanksgiving, and yet hundreds of men, women, and children from our community are homeless and hurting this holiday season. Yet you can provide hope. Just $2.58 provides a hot meal and life-changing services at the Wyoming Rescue Mission, like safe, welcoming shelter, support, and long-term recovery to help them get back on their feet. Learn more and give online at wyomission.org. That's wyomission.org.
While reports of sexual assault within the ranks of the Wyoming Military Department are down more than 30%, even one is one too many. That was one lawmaker's reaction to hearing the updated statistics about sexual assault in Wyoming's military ranks, which have gone down from 16 reports in 2022 to 11 this year. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson reports.
16 was seen as a pretty bad number in some regards that year because it was nearly a triple amount from the year before. So they're relatively pleased that these reports have gone down. But as Representative Landon Brown, who's the co-chair of the committee, said they're not really going to be content until all these get down to zero.
And the Fort Laramie National Historic Site is one of the most significant historic places in Wyoming. For many, that history includes stories, legends, and lore that the place is also one of the most haunted places in the Cowboy State. When David Martinez and Justin McComb visited Fort Laramie on Halloween, they weren't looking for a scare, but Martinez captured some photos that would raise the interest of anyone with a soft spot for the supernatural, according to Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi.
As they were taking pictures, they saw lights that suddenly disappeared and vanished behind objects. It just seemed unnatural during broad daylight. So it just adds to this litany of ghostly sightings and encounters of Fort Laramie. And, you can take those with a grain of salt, but even National Park Service employees who work at the site admit they've encountered things that they can't explain. The thing that sticks out to me are the smells. Occasionally they'll get smells of rose water and pipe tobacco that they can't explain and can't find a source for. So take away what you will, but if there's any place that is haunted, Fort Laramie is as good a candidate as any.
You can take a look at the photos Martinez took at cowboystatedaily.com, where you can read about all of these stories and more. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.